Welcome to Boring Money, Rich Life. I'm your host, Joy Hicks, and today we're going to talk about a few current events because there is a lot happening in the world right now. And one thing that I'm learning is that if you are trying to build wealth, it's going to be very important to understand what's happening in the world. So prior to kind of like getting on my personal wealth journey, I really didn't even watch the news. Like I would get on social media, but I wasn't really paying attention to what was actually happening in the world. And one thing that I'm realizing as I'm learning is that if you are trying to invest, especially into the stock market, it's going to be so important to know what's going on because stocks are definitely impacted by what's happening in the world. Now, everybody does have a different like investment strategy. Definitely consult a financial advisor. I am not a financial advisor, but the one thing that I'm learning is you need to know what's going on. So, we're going to talk about a few different things today. So the Federal Reserve Bank, they again decided to kind of leave rates steady. And the reason being is that there's still just so much uncertainty. There's just so much going on that they're kind of taking like this wait and see approach. So we were already kind of in the midst of chaos a little bit with this quote unquote trade war that Trump is creating. And so there's a lot happening there. And then now we are definitely seeing a lot of like conflict and just political unrest in the Middle East between Israel and Iran. And so both of those things happening simultaneously is definitely creating a lot of economic uncertainty. So they kind of have decided that again, they're going to wait and see. And with that, prices are kind of expected to increase. So like retail prices and even oil, they're definitely saying there are concerns that like oil prices are going to increase. Now, that doesn't mean that here, like in the US, we're going to automatically see like prices at the gas pump go up. But they were saying over the next few weeks, over the next few months, if those tensions do kind of increase, or if the US does get involved into a war, we definitely might see prices in general increase. And because of the tariffs, we're also starting to see a lot of companies do a lot of like importing into the US. And so they were kind of reporting that that is impacting economic growth. And it makes sense why companies would do this because, if you're worried about whether or not you're going to be able to get goods, and then if you are able to get those goods, they might be significantly higher. It definitely makes sense why there would be like a surge of importing into the US, but they were saying that that's having like a little bit of a negative impact on the actual economic growth. And I think that's because now they're reporting that consumers are actually like spending a little bit less. So they were saying that in the retail sector and even in like cars, that they're starting to see a decline in economic spending. Now, I don't think it's like a huge decline because technically they're also saying that we're not yet in a recession because there is still a good amount of spending. But I think it's definitely enough for them to notice, like, oh, okay, shoppers are starting to pull back a little bit, which also makes sense because if you're not really sure if you're going to have a job, if you're not really sure if you're going to be able to buy a home, it would definitely make sense that you would start to pull back and stop spending as much. So it definitely goes hand in hand, but all of these things are kind of contributing to why there is a little bit of economic uncertainty. And there are recent projections that are saying we might actually see unemployment increase. Now, I've shared with you guys many times that I am in technology and I've been seeing layoffs since like 2023. And that does have a lot to do with like artificial intelligence and a lot of companies deciding that they want to automate a lot of different roles and positions. Now, I don't think technology is the only sector that's going to see, layoffs or unemployment. Definitely don't think that, but that's just what I've observed personally. It's like with AI coming in and doing a lot of automation, a lot of these corporations are kind of able to like cut back on salaries, which tends to be one of the greatest expenses for a business. So they are again projecting that we might see a little bit more unemployment, which makes sense why people are starting to realize, like, hey, I should probably start saving. I should have an emergency fund. But it definitely makes sense, especially because prices are projected to keep increasing. So we'll definitely kind of see how the Fed keeps an eye on those things. Like, they're definitely going to be monitoring inflation, they're going to be monitoring unemployment, and they're going to be monitoring, all of the political unrest that's happening right now. But like I said, it definitely makes sense why shoppers are kind of pulling back because, again, gas prices might go up, the cost of goods have already been going up. And so, again, there's also a lot of just economic uncertainty right now. Now, we might see, some positive things around these trade agreements as July 8th approaches, and that's kind of like the deadline that Trump gave himself to kind of finalize these agreements. He's made two with the United Kingdom and China, but he still has like 100 or so to finalize. But as that day approaches, that might kind of help give a little bit more, I guess, clarity of what this next few years is going to look like. So that's definitely, again, something that's impacting what the Federal Reserve Bank is kind of observing right now. And then a big thing that's kind of happening as well is the fact that a lot of investors are kind of seeking out safer ways to house their money. So I was kind of saying that there has been an increase in gold because a lot of investors, they don't really like the fluctuation that's happening right now with stocks, although stocks are doing pretty well. But, just because, again, there is a lot of uncertainty globally happening right now, a lot of people are buying a lot more gold. And then some people are actually investing in defense stocks. So there's kind of been a surge in those as well, just because, again, there is definitely tension in the Middle East. So kind of investing in those types of stocks has definitely been kind of like a hot ticket right now. So stocks like Lockheed Martin, Northrop, RTX, even like Palantir, there's been a lot of talks about those in the news lately, just because, again, people are looking at ways that they can capitalize and invest and things like that. So, as I said, there is a lot happening right now in the world, but as an investor, it's definitely important to kind of monitor those things just so that way you kind of know, what stocks might dip, what stocks might increase. You can kind of put an eye on those things. Now, I'm definitely going to continue to research, and as I do, I'll bring that information to you guys. But as always, what is one boring thing that you can do today to start fueling your rich life? Again, my name is Joy Hicks. I'm your host. Thank you for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe.